She recorded one voice note before she disappeared. The last recording. Before we begin, understand this: some stories don't end when the screen fades to black. They linger. They haunt. So if you're ready to step into the dark, subscribe, because once you hear this, you won't stop thinking about it. At 4:11 a.m., the church was empty. Or at least, it was supposed to be. Creekside Community Church sat quietly along a stretch of Texas highway, its parking lot washed in the pale glow of flickering security lights. Inside, folding chairs were stacked against the walls. A whiteboard stood ready for the early morning fitness class scheduled for 5 a.m. And somewhere inside that building, a figure moved. The surveillance footage would later show the suspect wandering the hallways in full tactical style gear, helmet, gloves, bulky vest, the word "police" printed across the chest. The disguise was convincing enough at a glance. But something about the gait was wrong. Slightly exaggerated. Almost theatrical. At 4:16 a.m., the figure pried open a door with a crowbar. At 4:18, they smashed a glass panel. At 4:20, they stopped moving. Because someone else had just arrived. Missy Beavers was the kind of woman who filled a room with energy before she even spoke. A 45-year-old mother of 3, fitness instructor, and devoted member of the church, she was known for her early morning workouts that pushed people past their limits. Rain or shine, Missy showed up. That morning, she pulled into the parking lot as a storm rolled in. Lightning cracked in the distance, thunder rumbling low across the Texas sky. She texted a few members of her class about the weather, joking that we're hardcore. Then she walked inside. What happened next lasted less than 5 minutes. By 5 a.m., her students began arriving. They noticed the glass. The broken door. The eerie silence. And then they found her. Missy's body lay inside the church hallway. Police arrived within minutes. Yellow tape wrapped around the building. Flashing lights painted the rain-soaked pavement red and blue. Detectives moved carefully through the hallways, stepping around shattered glass and scattered debris. There were signs of forced entry. But nothing had been stolen. The security footage was immediately seized. When investigators reviewed it, the room went silent. The suspect wasn't rushing. They weren't panicked. They wandered casually through the church corridors for nearly 30 minutes before Missy arrived. Opening doors. Peeking into rooms. Breaking glass almost playfully. It didn't look like a robbery. It looked like waiting. Detective Aaron Molina, a veteran homicide investigator with a reputation for noticing the details others missed, studied the footage frame by frame. The suspect's build was ambiguous. The tactical gear obscured height and body shape. Even the walk was strange, deliberate, almost unnatural. Male or female? Someone asked. Molina didn't answer. Outside the church, reporters gathered within hours. The footage was released to the public days later. It exploded across news stations and online forums. Millions watched the grainy clip of the disguised figure drifting through the hallways like a ghost. Internet detectives slowed it down. Zoomed in. Debated hip movement. Shoulder width. Stride length. The speculation went global. But inside the Beavers' home, none of that mattered. Her husband, Brandon, had been out of town on a fishing trip. He flew back immediately, grief-stricken and bewildered. Friends described their marriage as stable, loving. Missy had no known enemies. No history of threats. But detectives knew better than to take anything at face value. They dug into her digital life. Emails. Social media. Text messages. That's when they found it. At 3:50 a.m., just 26 minutes before she entered the church, Missy had recorded a voice note on her phone. It wasn't sent to anyone. It wasn't posted. It was saved in her drafts. The audio was only 18 seconds long. Detectives gathered in a small conference room as the file played through a speaker. The sound quality was low, rain tapping faintly in the background. Missy's voice was steady, but hushed. If something happens to me, she said, it wasn't random. I think someone's been watching me. I don't want to scare anyone, but I feel like this is about to get worse. The recording ended abruptly. No names. No explanation. Just fear. The room fell silent. Detective Molina replayed it 3 times. Someone had been watching her. But who? Friends admitted Missy had mentioned feeling uneasy in recent weeks. A car lingering near her home. Strange messages online. Nothing overtly threatening, just enough to make her uncomfortable. Investigators subpoenaed her phone records. That's when another detail surfaced. In the weeks leading up to her death, Missy had exchanged dozens of late-night messages with an unidentified contact saved only as R. The tone of the texts wasn't hostile. They were personal. Intimate. And the final message, sent just hours before she drove to the church, read: "You promised you'd tell him." Detective Molina leaned back in his chair. Affair? Blackmail? Something else? They traced the number. It belonged to a prepaid phone. Unregistered. Untraceable. Then came the second shock. One of Missy's close friends admitted she had recently confided in her about someone from her past resurfacing. Someone who could ruin everything. But she never gave a name. As detectives prepared to question Brandon again, a patrol officer rushed into the room with new information. A local sporting goods store had just reviewed its sales records. 3 days before the murder, someone purchased tactical gear, helmet, vest, gloves, paying entirely in cash. The store's security camera captured the buyer. The footage was grainy. The face partially obscured by a baseball cap. But when they enhanced the image, one detail became clear. The buyer wasn't a stranger. It was someone who had attended Missy's fitness class. And when detectives ran the name through their database, they discovered something that changed the direction of the entire case. The suspect had filed for divorce 2 weeks earlier, citing infidelity. And Missy's name was listed in the paperwork. But that wasn't the part that made Detective Molina's blood run cold. The divorce filing had been submitted by a woman. And the figure in the church hallway suddenly didn't look so male anymore. The disguise slips. By the time the divorce records surfaced, the case had already consumed national headlines. Now it exploded. The woman's name was Dana Harlow. 38 years old. Married for 12 years. 2 children. She had attended Missy's early morning fitness classes for nearly 6 months. Friends described her as quiet, disciplined, intensely private. The kind of person who didn't draw attention, but noticed everything. Her divorce filing cited marital misconduct. Attached to it were screenshots of text messages between her husband and an unnamed woman. The messages were emotional, flirtatious, suggestive, but never explicit. The name of the other woman was redacted. Investigators didn't need it to be spelled out. The timing was devastating. Dana filed for divorce 14 days before Missy was killed. Detective Molina drove to Dana's home that afternoon. Suburban neighborhood. Trim lawn. Basketball hoop in the driveway. It looked painfully ordinary. Dana answered the door calmly. No visible shock when she learned why detectives were there. "I heard about the church," she said evenly. Everyone did. Inside, the house was spotless. Framed family photos lined the hallway. Her husband, Eric Harlow, wasn't home. Molina asked the question directly. "Did you know about your husband and Missy Beavers?" A pause. "Not long, but noticeable." "I suspected," Dana replied. "But suspicion isn't proof." She admitted she had confronted Eric weeks earlier after discovering late-night texts. He denied a physical affair. Claimed it was emotional confusion. Said he had cut contact. Dana's voice never cracked. Her posture never shifted. "Where were you Monday morning between 4 o'clock and 5 a.m.? Molina asked. "At home. Sleeping." "Anyone who can confirm that?" My children were home. Not helpful. Molina studied her build. Height, 5 feet 8 inches. Athletic. Broad shoulders from years of CrossFit. The surveillance figure's proportions suddenly felt less ambiguous. They asked about tactical gear. Dana didn't hesitate. I don't own anything like that. But when investigators executed a search warrant later that evening, they found something interesting. Not tactical gear. Not a weapon. But a receipt. Crumpled. Stuffed inside a gym bag in the garage. Sporting goods store. Cash purchase. 3 days before the murder. The total matched the exact amount of the tactical gear purchase flagged earlier. Dana claimed she had bought camping supplies for her children's school trip. The problem? The store confirmed no camping equipment had been purchased in that transaction. Just helmet. Vest. Gloves. Pry bar. Meanwhile, Eric Harlow was brought in for questioning separately. He looked wrecked. Dark circles under his eyes. Hands trembling. Yes, he admitted. I had feelings for Missy. But it wasn't physical. He insisted they had talked about starting fresh. About honesty. About telling their spouses. You promised you'd tell him. Detectives showed him the text recovered from Missy's phone. Eric swallowed hard. That was about me telling Dana, he said. Missy didn't want secrets anymore. Did you know she felt threatened? Eric's confusion looked genuine. Threatened? By who? That's when Molina played the 18-second voice note. Eric stared at the table as Missy's voice filled the room. If something happens to me, it wasn't random. When the recording ended, he whispered, she never told me she was scared. But investigators weren't done. They pulled cell tower data from the morning of the murder. Missy's phone pinged near the church at 4:05 a.m. Dana's phone? It was turned off between 3:47 a.m. and 5:12 a.m. Convenient. Eric's phone remained active at home all night. Then another detail surfaced. A dark SUV had been captured on a nearby traffic camera heading toward the church around 3:58 a.m. The vehicle matched Dana's model and year. But the license plate was unreadable in the storm. When confronted with the phone data, Dana's composure finally flickered. I go running early sometimes, she said. I turn my phone off so no one bothers me. In tactical gear? Molina asked quietly. She didn't answer. Online, the footage was dissected endlessly. One independent analyst enhanced the video and highlighted something subtle. The suspect's left foot turned slightly outward while walking. Dana had the same gait. A former ankle injury from college athletics. Coincidence? Maybe. But coincidences were piling up. Then came the twist no one expected. Forensic results from the church hallway returned. Under Missy's fingernails, investigators found trace fibers. Dark synthetic material. Consistent with the inside lining of a tactical glove. But mixed within those fibers was something else. A strand of hair. Short. Light brown. Female. DNA testing was rushed. When the results came back, the lab technician personally called Detective Molina. It's not a full match, she explained. But it's consistent with someone in Dana Harlow's maternal line. Not definitive. But dangerously close. Police prepared an arrest warrant. Before they could execute it, Dana vanished. Her SUV was found abandoned at a remote trailhead outside town. Keys still in the ignition. Phone left on the passenger seat. Inside the vehicle, investigators found a handwritten note on a torn piece of notebook paper. It wasn't a confession. It wasn't an apology. It was a single sentence. She wasn't supposed to ruin everything. Detective Molina stared at the words. Anger? Jealousy? Something deeper? Search teams combed the surrounding woods for days. No sign of Dana. No body. No trace. Then, on the fourth night, Eric Harlow called police in a panic. Someone had broken into his house. Nothing was stolen. But in the center of his living room floor, illuminated by the television's faint glow, was a single object placed carefully on the carpet. A tactical helmet. And taped to the visor. An 18-second audio recorder. The voice that wouldn't die. The audio recorder was still blinking when officers arrived at Eric Harlow's house. Red. Steady. Waiting. Detective Molina crouched beside it, careful not to disturb the placement. No signs of forced entry. No shattered windows. No broken locks. Whoever had entered knew exactly how to get in. Eric stood trembling near the kitchen doorway. "I locked everything," he kept repeating. "I swear I did." Forensics photographed the helmet before touching it. Same model as the one purchased at the sporting goods store. Same brand. Same matte black finish. Molina peeled the recorder from the visor and pressed play. Static. Then breathing. Slow. Controlled. And then a voice. Not Missy's. Female. Low. Distorted slightly by what sounded like fabric over the microphone. "She thought she could walk away clean," the voice said. "She thought she could confess and start over." A pause. "You don't get to destroy a family and call it honesty." Click. The recording ended. Eric slid down against the wall, burying his face in his hands. "It's her," he whispered. "It's Dana." But Molina didn't answer. Because something wasn't sitting right. The voice was controlled, almost rehearsed. Not frantic. Not emotional. There was no rage in it. Just calculation. Dana had vanished 4 days earlier. Her SUV abandoned. No financial activity. No passport use. No confirmed sightings. If she was on the run, why return to the one place crawling with police attention? Unless she hadn't been running at all. Forensic analysis on the helmet delivered another shock. There were no usable fingerprints. But inside the padding, investigators found trace cosmetic residue, foundation makeup, light beige. Dana rarely wore makeup. Friends confirmed she preferred a natural look, especially to 5 a.m. workout sessions. But someone had worn that helmet long enough for foundation to transfer. Meanwhile, the DNA from the hair found at the church was upgraded from consistent to probable match. Still not courtroom perfect, but tightening. Search teams expanded outward from the abandoned SUV. Drones scanned wooded areas. K-9 units tracked scent trails that ended abruptly near a rural access road. Then a rancher reported something unusual. 2 miles from the trailhead, down a dirt service path rarely used, a burned patch of earth had been discovered near an old storage shed. Inside the charred remains, fragments of fabric consistent with tactical gloves. And beneath the debris, a second prepaid phone. Damaged by fire, but not destroyed. Tech specialists worked for hours extracting data. When they finally accessed the memory, they uncovered dozens of deleted voice memos. Practice recordings. The same distorted female voice. Repeating lines. "She wasn't supposed to ruin everything. You don't get to destroy a family. She thought she could walk away." The tone shifted slightly in each version. Testing cadence. Adjusting emotion. Whoever recorded them wasn't panicked. They were preparing. And then they found something that changed everything. One final audio file, timestamped 2 days before the murder. This one wasn't distorted. It wasn't rehearsed. It was a conversation. Missy's voice. Clear. Calm. "I never meant to hurt anyone," she said. "We haven't even told them yet." A man responded. His voice unmistakable. Eric Harlow. "We will," he insisted. "Dana's already suspicious. I'll handle it." Missy exhaled softly. "I just don't want this to explode." The recording ended. Detective Molina replayed it 3 times. Dana hadn't recorded this. The phone had been purchased 3 days before the murder. But this conversation was from 2 days before that purchase. Which meant someone had been recording Missy and Eric before the tactical gear was ever bought. Someone planning long before the divorce filing. Molina requested financial records again, this time digging deeper into Eric's accounts. There it was. A cash withdrawal matching the exact amount of the tactical gear purchase. Not from Dana's account. From Eric's. 3 days before the murder. Eric had told investigators he was home asleep that morning. Cell tower data had supported that. But prepaid phones don't ping like standard devices. And the prepaid phone recovered from the burn site had one outgoing ping at 3:41 a.m. on the morning of the murder. Near Eric's residence. Molina confronted him that night. The man who had appeared broken now looked cornered. "I loved her," Eric said quietly. "Which one?" Molina asked. Silence. Then the unraveling began. Eric admitted he had been recording conversations with Missy for weeks. At first, he claimed it was paranoia, fear she would expose him. Fear of losing everything. But the truth was darker. Missy had ended the affair. Not gently. She had told him she felt watched. That something felt wrong. That they needed to stop. Eric couldn't accept it. He withdrew the cash. He bought the gear. He studied the church layout during drop-offs and pickups. And on that stormy morning, he arrived before Missy. The exaggerated gait? Intentional. The disguise? Designed to spark confusion. But what about Dana? Molina placed the burned phone on the table between them. "You practiced framing her," he said. Eric's jaw tightened. She was already filing for divorce. Everyone would believe it. And the helmet in your living room? A slow exhale. I needed it to look like she was still out there. Running. Angry. Dana hadn't vanished. She had confronted Eric the night after the murder, threatening to go to police with what she suspected. Eric met her near the trailhead to talk. Only he never intended to talk. Search teams returned to the wooded area with new coordinates. 2 days later, they found her. Buried shallow beneath disturbed earth not far from the burned phone. The nation had hunted a jealous wife. Debated her walk. Analyzed her posture. While the real killer gave interviews on television, grieving on cue. At trial, the surveillance footage played again. This time with context. Jurors watched the figure roam the church halls, unaware they were witnessing a performance carefully constructed to mislead them. Eric Harlow was convicted of 2 counts of murder. But even after sentencing, debate lingered online. Conspiracy threads refused to die. Some insisted there had to be more. Because that 18-second voice note from Missy still echoed. If something happens to me, it wasn't random. She was right. It wasn't. And the most terrifying part? The disguise worked. For weeks, the world chased the wrong monster. They thought the killer was hiding behind a helmet. But the real danger was the man standing beside her all along. If you think this case was disturbing, remember, sometimes the person investigating the chaos is the one who created it. And the next story waiting in the dark might be closer than you think.